Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 585. I am Amish Shackle. Foreign news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Sees World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, breaking news. U.S. forces take custody of an Iranian ship. Will it derail talks set for tomorrow? Back here, the weather whiplash. After record heat, the cold is coming back. And the mass shooting that's left 8 children dead. The Pentagon releases video showing a U.S. Navy destroyer firing several rounds on an Iranian-flagged cargo ship, claiming the ship violated the U.S. blockade. Tonight, critical peace talks hang in the balance with the ceasefire ending 3 days from now. The global oil supply caught in the standoff over the Strait of Hormuz, keeping U.S. gas prices stubbornly high. Ian Pannell reports from the region. Selena Wang at the White House tonight. The cold snap to start the work week. Frost and freeze alerts across 14 states after record highs across parts of the east. The National Weather Service now confirms at least 50 tornadoes from California to Vermont last week as communities try to clean up the debris. The horrific mass shooting, at least 8 children killed from 18 months to 14 years old. The suspect shot trying to get away. Police are calling it a domestic disturbance. A small plane crashes in a neighborhood on a quiet Sunday morning, killing the pilot, the only person on board. The chaotic scene outside a dog breeding and research site. Animal rights activists protesting. Police firing rubber bullets and pepper spray making arrests. 2 U.S. Army soldiers injured in an animal attack during a training exercise, encountering a bear in a remote area. What they did that may have saved their lives. Pope Leo's historic trip to Africa, celebrating Mass with 100,000 in Angola, calling the ceasefire in Lebanon a sign of hope, praying for peace worldwide. The hero principal who took a bullet stopping a potential mass shooting at his school, his grateful students vote to crown him their prom king. And the hot air balloon and its 13 passengers end up in a tiny backyard. We're landing. Masterful landing, taking the homeowners by surprise.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday. On this Sunday night, countdown to the resumption of war. With a ceasefire between Iran, the U.S., and Israel set to end on Wednesday.
We are confident they will come to the table.
The stumbling block to peace talks and the renewed threats from both sides. The high cost of war for air travel.
Some airports will be starting to run out of fuel probably within the next couple of weeks.
Why experts say be prepared for soaring fares and flight cancellations. Reverse engines. Ontario announces it's returning a jet it just purchased for the Premier's use. And monkey love.
People look at baby monkeys and say, oh, I can take good care of that baby monkey.
What our obsession with these orphan primates says about us.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. U.S. President Donald Trump says a delegation will be back in Islamabad tomorrow for high-stakes talks aimed at ending the Iran war and accused the regime of violating the fragile ceasefire that ends Wednesday. But Tehran says any...
The world is watching for signs of a deal between the U.S. and Iran.
It's working out very well. They got a little cute as they have been doing for 47 years. Nobody ever took them on. We took them on. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no leaders. They have no nothing. Actually, their leaders are, it is regime change. You call that enforced regime change.
But there's also a larger global picture in play. A 10-day temporary ceasefire in Lebanon appears to be holding. The president says Israel is prohibited from furthering their bombing campaign against Hezbollah, while reports claim China is providing material support to Iran just weeks before the president is scheduled to visit Beijing. And the United Nations seems far too comfortable with letting Iran's brutal regime call the shots. And our ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, joins me now to talk about it all. Ambassador, welcome to the show. This conflict, fortunately, sounds like it is getting near the end. The president says Iran is starting to agree to things that maybe they weren't open to even 2 months ago. So what needs to happen now in order to finally bring a resolution?
Well, hi, Laura. Let's just take a moment and reflect on just the past week. We had the president brilliantly flip the script and turn the tables on the Iranians with the blockade. Then you have the highest level talks ever since the Iranian regime led its revolution in '79 with the vice president, Steve Witkoff, Kushner in Islamabad, and on top of that, just in the past week, the first ever direct talks between the Israelis and the Lebanese that led now to this ceasefire. The president is playing chess when the rest of the world is playing checkers. I was just on the Senate this week, and critics were hand-wringing over some mean tweets and maybe an F-bomb from the president. But you know what? What do you say to a regime that is yelling death to America at every turn? And you know what? It worked. It got them back to the table. So look, going forward, the conversations and the negotiations are ongoing. The president has made his red lines very clear. He's also made it very clear that he'll back our diplomacy, he'll back our diplomats with force, with the great U.S. military.
Pope Leo XIV on Sunday called on Angolans to build hope for the future and fight corruption as he celebrated Mass before an estimated 100,000 people outside the capital. Leo denounced the exploitation of their mineral-rich land and people who still bear the scars of a brutal post-independence civil war.
Na verdade, ao longo do caminho, a conversa dos dois discípulos que recordam com desânimo.
Indeed, the conversation along the road between the two disciples who reflect with sorrow on what happened to their master brings to mind the pain that has marked your country.
Uma longa guerra civil, como seu rastro de inimizades e divisões.
A long civil war with its aftermath of enmities and divisions, of squandered resources and poverty.
Quando, durante muito tempo, se permanece
when one is immersed for a long time in a history so marked by pain, one runs the risk of the two disciples of Emmaus, losing hope and remaining paralyzed by discouragement.
Perder a esperança e ficar paralisados pelo desânimo.
In front of Angolan authorities on Saturday, Leo already encouraged the country's population as he denounced the consequences of colonial plunder.
Hoje é necessário olhar para o futuro com esperança e
Today, we need to look to the future with hope and to build hope for the future.
Não tenhais medo.
Do not be afraid to do so.
Jesus ressuscitado,
the risen Christ who walks the path with you and raised himself as bread for you, encourages you to be witnesses of his resurrection and to be active participants in a new humanity and a new society.
E protagonistas de uma nova humanidade e de uma nova sociedade.
Later on Sunday, Leo was expected to celebrate the Rosary.
This is Asia First.
Good Monday morning. I'm Julie Yu. It's 9 a.m. here in Singapore. The headlines this hour. President Donald Trump says the U.S. has struck and seized an Iranian cargo ship attempting to pass its blockade near the Strait of Hormuz.
Motor vessel Tosca. Vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room. We're prepared to subject you to disabling fire.
The U.S. military confirmed that a Navy destroyer fired on the vessel after it failed to comply with multiple warnings. Iran has vowed to retaliate, calling it a violation of the ceasefire, which is due to end in a few days.
Now that potential escalation casting a shadow on a possible resumption of peace talks. I'm Arnold Gay. President Trump earlier saying U.S. envoys would be in Pakistan to restart negotiations as he again threatened strikes to pressure Iran to make a deal. An Iranian state media now reporting Tehran will not participate.
This start of Hollywood Business News. Oil prices climb more than 7% as tensions between the U.S. and Iran flare again, revive fears of energy supply shocks, plus inflation pressures across markets. Asia-Pacific stocks opened the trading week mixed as investors keep a cautious eye on renewed tensions and disruptions on the Strait of Hormuz.
Global supply chains and energy security likely to top the agenda as South Korean President Lee Jae-myung prepares to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi in India.
Iranian military has vowed to retaliate after a U.S. destroyer fired on and seized a Iranian flag vessel in the Gulf of Oman.
The Iranian military reportedly calling the move armed piracy. President Trump said U.S. forces seized the cargo ship after it tried to get through its naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran reportedly accusing Washington of breaching the ceasefire.
Watching Sky News, I'm discretion. Here are the headlines. President Trump accuses Iran of a total violation of the ceasefire agreement as he threatens to knock out the country's power plants and bridges. Tehran says it won't take part in further peace talks as Washington firms J.D. Vance will return to Pakistan today for negotiations. Also, counter-terror police investigate whether Iranian proxies are behind a string of arson attacks in North London.
I've spoken previously about the Iranian regime's use of criminal proxies, and we're considering whether this tactic is being used here in London.
Plus, a critical week for the Prime Minister over Peter Mandelson's failed vetting to be the US ambassador. Welcome to Sky News. On this Monday morning, President Trump says US forces have taken custody of an Iranian ship that was attempting to pass the naval blockade near the Strait of Hormuz. It comes as Iran said it would refuse to take part in a second round of peace talks with America shortly after Washington confirmed Vice President J.D. Vance would head to Pakistan for further negotiations to end the war. Well, these images...
Back Sunday on ABC and ABC iView. Here with ABC News, it's 11 a.m. Eastern Time and 9 a.m. in the West. Leading our bulletin this hour, the US Navy seizes an Iranian-flagged cargo ship trying to go through its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. It comes just 3 days before the fragile 2-week ceasefire is due to expire. Thousands of people forced to flee their homes in Lebanon South return to survey the damage from Israeli strikes. The Treasurer foreshadows changes to the capital gains tax discount and cuts to the NDIS in the upcoming May budget. Changes to Lifeblood's donor eligibility rules come into effect. And not a beat of sweat in sight, a humanoid robot smashes the world record for a half marathon. It's Monday, the 20th of April. I'm Gemma Vaness, and this is ABC News Mornings. US President Donald Trump says an American destroyer has fired upon and seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship, which attempted to run the US Navy's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
Motor vessel Tosca. Vacate your engine room. Vacate your engine room.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. President Donald Trump says U.S. negotiators will arrive in Pakistan on Monday for more talks with Iran. The current ceasefire is due to expire on Wednesday. Writing on Truth Social, Trump accused Iran of violating the truce by firing on ships. He also repeated his threats to destroy Iran's infrastructure. Iranian state media say Tehran may refuse to send a delegation because the U.S. is blockading its ports. The French President Emmanuel Macron is to meet Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaz Salam in Paris. France has blamed the militant group Hezbollah for an ambush on UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, which killed one French soldier and wounded 3 others. Hezbollah denies this. Macron is to urge Lebanon to identify and prosecute those responsible. Bulgaria's pro-Russian former president Rumen Radev is heading for a landslide victory. The previous conservative-led government resigned following mass anti-corruption protests last year. Radev campaigned promising to stamp out corruption and restore stability. It was Bulgaria's 8th election in 5 years. France 24.
Thanks for joining us. See you again. Take care.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Hello, welcome to Night Watch here on France 24. Here are the top stories. Iran's military vows a swift response after the U.S. Army hit an Iranian cargo ship which tried to breach the U.S.'s continued blockade on Iranian ports. Tehran now refuses to attend a second round of peace talks in Islamabad until the siege is lifted. Bulgaria's former president set to make a political comeback as the country's prime minister. Rumen Radev's Progressive Bulgaria Party currently leading in Sunday's elections, far ahead of the ruling GERB party, according to exit polls. Tech billionaire Elon Musk set to snob questioning by Paris prosecutors after being summoned for alleged misconduct on his social media platform X. Authorities suspect X of spreading child sexual abuse images and deepfakes, accusations it denies. It's good to have you with us. A second push for peace in the Middle East is set for Monday, but one key player won't be in the room. U.S. Vice President J.
Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I hope you will come again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.